Greetings, America. Round 3. This video's been interrupted twice already, so let's see how far we can get. Good morning. It's December 2nd, 2021. A nice, cool, crisp, southeastern coastal Carolina morning. I have no idea what all that noise is in the background. Perhaps it's one of my cats being an idiot or a dog. I don't know. So to bring you up to speed, shortly after the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, I made a video. I finished producing it. I never published it on the internet. And I provided some thoughts and opinions on what I thought about the whole thing. The short version is this. I didn't think it should have ever gone to trial. I thought that the elected officials that act in some sort of justice capacity in Kenosha succumbed to a tremendous amount of socio-political pressure, decided to charge the kid, okay, and that's what turned this trial into a national media sensation. There should have never been a trial. He should have never been charged, nor should it have ever have gotten the attention it got. I think people focused on his age. I think people focused on his dual address. People, because we live in a day and age where we're not concerned with all of the facts. We're only concerned with the facts that can support our emotional content. I'm starting to get a little annoyed with the term narrative, because I feel like it's constantly being overused, but that's basically what it is. The overwhelming majority of news media outlets wanted to sell this story as an underage white male who crossed state lines from one state into another with an unlawful firearm, okay, and then went in there and shot up BLM protesters, okay? So when you phrase it like that and you provide it in that context and you shape it in that image, yeah, it conjures up a lot of negative emotions. When the facts are this: his father is from Kenosha. His grandparents are from Kenosha. He works in Kenosha. He spends an awful lot of time in Kenosha. He has a lot of friends in Kenosha. He was apparently a volunteer cadet, volunteer firefighter. He was a lifeguard. He was an EMT. I mean, for all intents and purposes, this was about as polished American youth as you could get. All right? This is the type of kid where you're like, God, maybe my daughter, hopefully my daughter could meet a boy like this. Anyways, so he decides that he wants to volunteer with a group of people to help protect and or preserve the community. He's putting out fires, he's cleaning up graffiti. All of this was taking place prior to any of the events, okay? Now, hindsight being 2020, you can argue the optics of everything. He's a young man. He looks like a young man. He's baby-faced. I don't even know if he can grow facial hair yet. And I say that somewhat sarcastically for a reason. And through some decision-making process, somebody who's a friend of his who owns an AR-15, I don't remember if the AR-15 was purchased specifically for Kyle with Kyle's money, but it was legally purchased in the state of Wisconsin, and it was legally maintained in the state of Wisconsin by a legal resident who was old enough to purchase the weapon. The weapon itself did not belong to Kyle, as far as I know, legally. However, due to certain laws in the state of Wisconsin that were meant to curb gang violence and whatnot, due to the length of the rifle, Kyle was legally allowed to carry the rifle, and in which case that's what you would call possession. So he was legally allowed to possess the weapon, which was in his possession strictly for the purpose of protecting himself against the rioters who had succumbed to mob mentality. Anybody who's gone to college, at least for the first 2 years, has more than likely taken an introduction to sociology class where you learned all about groupthink, mob mentality, etc. So that's affectionately what you have, is what may or may not have started as a demonstration or a protest turned into all-out riots. The three individuals in question started out with Mr. Rosenbaum. He was a convicted pedophile, all right? Now, I don't care what other type of politically sensitive labels you want to put on it. He liked underage children. I think he liked underage boys. Okay? Now, I'm not here to talk about your sensibilities. I think an adult preying on children who are not old enough to make their own decisions, and I don't mean a late stage teenager, I'm talking about kids who may not have even crossed the middle school threshold yet. All right? And don't even come near me with that minor attracted persons label. That is not such a thing. I believe there could be a legitimate psychological diagnosis for pedophilia. I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying because it exists, therefore I accept it as a plausible premises for existence. No, not at all. All right, had Mr. Rosenbaum done anything to my children, we would have known his name a lot sooner because I would have done something to him had I been aware of it. So I'll leave it at that. You could make several arguments as to whether or not Mr. Rosenbaum was targeting Kyle for whatever reason, up to and including his predilection towards minors. But that's exactly what happened, is Mr. Rosenbaum somehow got fixated on Kyle and singled Kyle out, and specifically decided to go after Kyle when Mr. Rosenbaum was involved in a dumpster on wheels that was set on fire that he was pushing into a gas station. Now, the prosecution argued it like it's like, oh, it's whimsical, just whimsical behavior. No. You're pushing fire into a gas station where you have highly combustible liquids. No, you're not. That's not whimsical. That's not, the Cubs just won the World Series. That's riotous jackassery, unlawful behavior. And for whatever reason, the elected officials pulled the police force to a certain point and said, okay, this is going to be our Alamo. Don't cross this threshold. Otherwise, let them do what they're going to do. And I suppose I could see the mentality, which is, hey, we're going to have to take some acceptable losses, but versus, the media shitstorm and the socio-political shitstorm that could follow if we actually get out there in riot gear and try to, corral the people at a ratio of 7-1. There's 7 of them for every 1 law enforcement officer. I understand all that. Whether I agree or not, that doesn't make a difference. I understand all that. So Kyle's out there, attempting to be a good citizen. If you want to make an argument about his age, I think that's a separate argument, and we can have that conversation separately pertaining to the fact that a 21st century 17-year-old versus a 20th century 17-year-old. Go even further. I'm 45. I was born in 76. If you want to have the conversation as to whether or not I was more mature as a 17-year-old than his generation, generationally speaking, I'll have that argument. And then we can also discuss whether or not he as an individual was a rather responsible 17-year-old. But anyways, he's acquitted. Prior to the trial, during the trial, and even after the trial, we're only 2 weeks removed from his acquittal. People are still, whether you're a celebrity, whether you're a political figure, whatever the case, people are still slandering him with racial slurs. And I want to make this very clear. There are certain phrases and there are certain terms that, based on their value, should have weight. They should have gravitas. And we're currently using certain terms to a point where I don't know if you can take them serious anymore. When you used to say things like Nazi, that was making a very specific reference to a socio-political ideology that came out of Europe pertaining to a master race believed by a group of people in Germany that spread through Germany like wildfire. All right? They persecuted the gays, they persecuted the Jews, and they persecuted anybody with disabilities that they felt tainted the bloodline of the master race. They were terribly discriminant against anybody who wasn't part of that Germanic Anglo-Saxon bloodline. All right? And one of the greatest things America ever did was when Germany hosted the Olympics, I want to say 1938 or something like that. Jesse Owens went in there, a black American, and fucking crushed him. So a black guy goes into Germany And in spite of all the sabotage that the Germans did, I mean, this is historical fact. Jesse Owens goes in there representing the United States of America and fucking obliterates the crowds. So, I digress. My point being is that this poor kid, Kyle Rittenhouse, has been slandered with every, potentially racial hot slur, that I sincerely hope to God he's got good litigators that are going to go after everybody, up to and including the president. I can have a separate conversation about what I think about Democrats. I can have a separate conversation about what I feel about the president. That's not the point. So I continued the video. I think it went on for about 15 minutes about Kyle Rittenhouse. It should have never gone to trial. He shot 3 white guys. I don't know how that's racist. Are you claiming racism because it was supposed to be a BLM riot? Whatever the case may be. And then, of course, you have the separate topic of media bias. All right? And media bias, I wish I could stop talking about it. I wish I could talk about something else, and I could. There's plenty of other topics I could talk about. But when you talk about the media bias, so a riot is a riot. A riot is not a protest. Protests are quiet. Protests are peaceful. Protests cause no harm to people or property. Protests are, you just kind of like, hey, I feel this way about something. I disagree with that. I'm here. I'm being heard. You can't ignore me. When you destroy property and you injure others, that is no longer a protest. That's a riot. And if I'm not mistaken, other people were killed or severely injured by rioters at the Kenosha riots. All right, so attempting to put peaceful anywhere in the label of what happened in Kenosha is disingenuous, it's a lie, and it's purposeful manipulation based on interpersonal, socio-political, ideological bias. Okay? I challenge anybody to challenge me. All right? If you fancy yourself a rational and objective individual, if you're somebody that can go, yep, there's one apple, there's another apple, that's 2 apples, okay? I would like to converse with you. If you're somebody who's irrational, that's 1 apple, that's another apple, thank God I've got a watermelon, all right? If you're somebody who's irrational, I'm sure I could have a lot of fun with that, and who knows, maybe you'd have a lot of fun too. Let's get together and have a conversation. The point I'm trying to make is, with the media bias and the people who purchase that, the people who are invested in that, I know for a fact that there's a population in America that's like, yep, that's it. That's 100%. Watermelons. Yeah. That's, I believe the lie, so feed me the lie. Okay? I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to know why you believe the lie. I'd like to know why, when I can provide you with indisputable facts, when I can show you, okay, that you're like, it doesn't fit my belief system. And if you're one of those people, I venture to say you're also one of those people that's not very religious, okay? So it works both ways. If you're going to use science, and if you're going to use common sense, and if you're going to use, what's the word I'm looking for? I apologize. I don't want to drag this on because I'm stammering to find a word. But if you're going to use practicality, like disprove religion, okay, well then you have to be open to the concept of somebody on the other side using common sense, practicality, and science to disprove your individual belief in a concept. All right? So, the media and all the biases and how they framed everything and how they narrated this whole thing, all right? And then on top of it, you still had people slandering him and making claims to include, up until this point, on the 2nd of December, there's a whole group of people that are trying to get him expelled from Arizona State, where he was accepted. You know what? Unless he had his heart set on it, unless there's some sort of reason, like a family legacy, where he wants to go to Arizona State, I'd venture to say that there are other schools in the United States that are populated by extremely patriotic students, perhaps Second Amendment loving students, America-loving students, people that can, read and, interpret information for what it is versus believing false narratives, who'll be more than happy to go to school with somebody like Kyle Rittenhouse. So I'll just leave it at that. So, media keeps doing its thing. And whether it's the media or whoever's driving this, life is imitating art and art's imitating life. You have a gentleman who's a career criminal. He's got a horrific criminal past up to and including, all right, sexual misconduct with a minor. Okay? I'll say this much. There's a fine difference between Joseph Rosenbaum, who knowingly did this, and somebody who was not aware that somebody who looks old enough to participate was not legally an adult. All right? But I digress. So this gentleman, I forget his name because that's how little he means to me right now, after committing yet another felony, is out on $1,000 bail because he's a black man, and apparently being a black man carries a tremendous amount of social currency. Forget about Bitcoin. Forget about actual US dollars, the yuan, the yen, rubles. No. Social currency is where it's at. So because he's a black man and he's part of a demographic that carries a tremendous amount of social currency, had he have been a black gay woman, he probably would have had or even a black trans woman, his social currency would have been out the roof, where he probably wouldn't have even gotten bail. He would have been given money to get out of jail. But I digress. He's let out on $1,000 bond, and he takes his vehicle and he plows into a parade. I don't know if it was a white parade. I don't know if the parade was just coincidentally full of white people. But as of right now, he has killed 6. There are still other people that have been wounded, and he's killed 6. Now, these same media outlets that were so quick to frame the information to support the concept that Kyle Rittenhouse is a white supremacist that I hope to God gets sued into oblivion. I can't make this up. You can fact check me. All right? It's too easy to find. They're leaving out the man. I don't care if you want to take away his color. Okay? He's purple, he's rainbow, he's transparent. They literally have made the claim that a vehicle drove into a crowd and hurt people. I understand technology in the 21st century is at a point where that is plausible. And that's exactly how they're trying to sell this. All right? There was an individual human being behind the wheel, operating the vehicle, pressing the accelerator, using the steering wheel, all right? With intent, with malice, with all of that good stuff. Based on his social media, based on his internet presence, he hates white people. So he's a racist. Racism is not strictly for one group of people. Racism by itself is, I believe other people to be inferior. I believe other people to have negative qualities strictly because of their immutable characteristics. Skin color, hair color, age, religion, all right? Racism is discrimination, and it goes in any direction. It's not strictly for white people, okay? Brown, black, yellow, red, anybody can be racist, okay? This guy was a racist, hands down, unequivocal. 1 + 1 = racist, okay? Wake up in the morning, water's wet, grass is green, he's a racist, okay? And because of that, he plowed into these people with specific intent. Whether it had anything to do with the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict or not, I don't know. But yet we still have a media who built up the frenzy around Kyle Rittenhouse, which probably led to his trial, a trial that should have never happened. We have a media that possibly radicalized this guy. I don't know the deep roots of this guy, but there's, for all intents and purposes, depending on his age and his ability for influence, you have a media that radicalized this guy to the point where he had to go, he felt that he had to do that. Somewhere in his mind, that was his decision. When he did all the, okay, well, carry the one. Yep, I have to do this. This is my black civic duty for the black community. And that's the world we live in. That's our America. Okay? And I just want to have a conversation with somebody. I just want somebody to, I don't need you to agree, but I need somebody to provide some counterpoints, or I need somebody to provide some different angles that we can discuss. Because, are you doing this on purpose, Ginger? Freaking cat. Anyways, I just need someone to have the gumption to talk to me, whether it's a counterpoint, whether it's a different view, because all I'm seeing is a poor 17-year-old kid who was put on trial and temporarily incarcerated because of media bias, creating a story that was fictional for the purpose of, I don't know what the purpose was. I don't know what the end goal was. All right? And then the elected officials in the justice system of Kenosha decided to succumb to that pressure. He's still being slandered to this day, and then on top of it, you still have people talking about it. You still have people saying that the justice system failed. He's still a white supremacist. The judge is a white supremacist. White people are still getting away with this, that, or the other. And then you have a black man who, that's just his description. I could care less if he was yellow, white, red, doesn't matter to me. The motive matters to me more than anything else. Plows into a holiday parade, killing 6. If we could hang him 6 times, I would. All right, if for no other reason than his intent. Okay, and as far as I know, he has made his intentions known. It wasn't like, oh crap, my accelerator's stuck. These damn new cars with all that electronic gobbledygook. This is a weird freak accident. I don't believe in any of that. So, if you've seen any of my videos, you know the drill. I'm trying to stimulate a conversation because we can be emotionally invested in a subject. We can get angry about topics. We can disagree on topics. If we continue to allow the media to feed us the information, we are only going to be as good as what the media tells us. I don't trust the media. I trust us. I trust us to have rational conversations. I believe we are smart people. We can disagree. We can have different philosophies. We can have different opinions on certain subjects. And yet I do believe we can still get along. I do believe we can still cohabitate, and all of that stuff. And no, it's not me trying to be virtuistic or religious or anything like that. It's just, I honestly believe in our capacity for both good and evil. And what I'm trying to overcome is, I don't care who's in charge. I don't care what the agenda is. I think it's beyond obvious that the media is flat out lying. And they're to the point right now where they're like, yeah, and of course we're lying. Don't blame us. Blame the people that want the lie. Blame the consumer. If we didn't have an audience that wants to buy the lie, even though they know it's a lie, but they like it, it's like drugs. How many people know drugs are bad for you, but they still fucking do them? Oh, man. Heroin's so bad. I gotta find a new vein. The media's a drug now. You know it's bad, you know it's not good for you, but yet people are still addicted to it, even though they know the consequences. So maybe this is an intervention. Maybe if anybody's willing to step up and have these conversations, maybe we can get sober. Because I'm not going to use that fucking stupid-ass term, woke. Go fuck yourself. You know the deal. Like the video, dislike the video, I don't give a shit. Subscribe, I don't give a shit. All I care about is whether you leave a comment or whether you're willing to participate in the conversation. If not, if you came this far, it's almost 25 minutes in, hey, good for you. But please, get involved. I'll try to get this out on Instagram. I'll put it up on Facebook. It'll be on YouTube. Please, let's have these conversations and, let's try to find some middle ground. We'll see what happens. Ball's in your court.